All right, I'm gonna unmute everybody. Let's see, I'm gonna allow you to. Okay, so it'll allow me to allow you to unmute yourself. So see if you can unmute yourself, guys.
Hello there.
Hey, awesome.
Hello there.
Yay.
What's up? What's up?
Hello.
Hey,
Hi.
everybody.
Everybody.
Hello.
Cool.
Oh,
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
In
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And good night.
Good directly afternoon.
How you doing?
Awesome. Let's see. I got to figure out a couple of things about how to make this work. Where is my video panel? There we go. So welcome to our live session. My name is Billy Barnett. It says William Barnett on the screen on the box, but it's really Billy. You can call me Billy. And welcome to week 2. I hope you guys had a nice holiday weekend. We're going to talk today about positive psychology, and we're also going to talk about the brain and play. Like I said, I kind of want you guys to feel like this is your time, and so I want to invite you guys to talk and discuss and participate. I will try to steer this boat in the right direction, make sure we stay sort of on our schedule to finish on time and get through as much as we can. I do want to talk about our homework, the discussion board. We have the call to play again this week, just like last week. It's a questionnaire about what you think. And so there's nothing that you need to do beforehand in order to do the call to play. You can just go ahead and do that without being too concerned about what you have to know. And then for the discussion board, you do want to know a little bit. And so I want to talk about our reading material today and give you guys an opportunity to chew it over during this time. We'll probably take a break at some point for like 5 minutes, and I will leave you guys to talk amongst yourselves while we do that. That's kind of cool for you guys to be able to share anything you want to talk about. But do remember, it is still being recorded when I do that, so anything you say can be heard in the recording. Just what you might want to know. So yeah, so there's me and my family. A little bit about me. I have a bachelor's degree from the University of Central Florida. I have a master's degree from Palm Beach Atlantic University in counseling psychology. I am a licensed mental health counselor. That's the LMHC stuff here. And there's my family before the pandemic when we went to Disney. We've been back actually since then with masks. And it's actually a pretty good scenario the way that it is right now.
I set this up last week. It's where I do everything on Thursday.
Nice. Yeah. So I do counseling in the evenings when I'm not doing full sales stuff. And my wife and I have a business together. My wife, Lauren, she does speech therapy, and she is actually out today for the first time doing face-to-face therapy with some kiddos. That'll be interesting to find out how that went. My kids are Elizabeth and William, and they are actually at home. They're doing homeschooling. Like, we are doing full-fledged homeschooling. My wife does the homeschooling of the kids, and I get to go make sure they're doing okay whenever she's not here. So for about 15 years or so, I was a professional photographer. And so the industry experience that I draw upon that is probably somewhat mattering to you is that I did professional photography. It was fun. I did play the drums for about 10 years before that. I loved that time playing the drums. And so a lot of my background is in music and photography. And I grew up with speech issues. I talked really fast and I stuttered. And I stuttered until I was in my mid-20s. And it was a mess. I overcame my speech issues in my 20s. It's a long story, I won't get into it, but basically from playing the drums. Because playing the drums mimics the fight or flight reaction. And so I learned how to control my anxiety and my breathing by playing the drums. And so the more I played the drums and then talked to people, the more I realized those two responses about being excited and being nervous seemed very similar between social anxiety and playing the drums. So anyway, I got better and then ended up talking for a living and marrying a speech therapist. And so a lot of my philosophy as a teacher is about helping people tell their stories. And anything that you are not very good at, you can become a professional in. I ended up almost failing out of college twice in my bachelor's degree and ended up overcoming my academic problems and did not think I would get a degree, much less two. And now I have a master's degree despite the fact that I was on academic suspension twice for bad grades in undergrad. So my job is very much to empathize with whatever it is you're going through and help you guys get where you need to go. And you'll find that that theme, regardless of whether I'm your instructor or one of my other friends who teach our class, you're going to find a pretty common theme with other instructors. We view our job here as being facilitators, not enforcers. And so I want to encourage you to reach out to your instructors if you have concerns or things that you need to overcome with a little bit of help. We desire to give you that help because we want to help you guys out. We want you to pass our course. Mostly because we think we can get you pointed in the right direction if you reach out to us. So be sure to do that. Cool?
Cool.
Excellent.
Good deal.
I got some pretty good feedback already in week 1 from my instructor. So
Good. Awesome. Yeah, you should find that to be consistent. We give specific feedback about the activities, especially the discussion boards. You'll find that we tell you what wasn't done according to the way it was supposed to be and how to fix it. And so that's like our primary thing, is to make sure we tell you how to do what to do if you didn't do it right first time. All right, I'm going to turn off my camera because it messes with my bandwidth. All right, so that's all of the beginning stuff. Wait for my computer fans to turn down a little bit. Before we start, does anybody have any concerns you want to bring up about where we are so far? You turned in your first set of activities for week 1. You will start to get your feedback starting today probably, as far as the discussion boards go.
Enough. I don't have any questions as far as the actual content, but I'm really self-conscious about this white noise I have in my background. Can people hear that?
No.
I don't hear nothing.
I cannot
Alright,
hear
cool.
anything.
hear it.
Thank you.
Wait, what white noise?
Okay, cool. Thank you.
I have white noise, but it's my computer fans. And they should be turning down eventually.
Worst noise I got are the pets.
Yeah, it's the white
The
noise
birds
and the computer fans.
now stuffing their face cats.
Nice.
I'm actually glad that the microphone was muted. You guys were going to be like, what's all that screaming?
All right.
Cool.
Do you want to do the week 2 quests first, or do you want to do those towards the end?
We could start off with those.
Or towards the end because it'd be fresh in the brain.
Before and after.
I like that, before and after.
Yeah.
Before
let's
and
do
after
that.
seems fun. Yeah.
Especially since I've got really bad memory, so before and after. I'm still gonna be confused after this, so.
Well, let's do this. Tell you what we'll do. We will do a real quick thing on the brain, and it's not going to take long to go through this one, and that'll get us through our first little bit, and then we'll do the homework, and then we'll do positive psychology. But I'll take a break between the homework and positive psychology. So let's do this real quick. So we'll get it out of the way. Let's go do a video real quick. This is kind of cool. I'm going to put this video in the chat box for you. And I'm not going to play it on my side, so you won't hear it or see it on my side. But if you can open up the chat box, you'll be able to see the link. So open up your chat box, and I'll send that link to you. And when you finish with the video, just click done in the chat box, and that'll let me know to keep going. The reason why I don't play it is because I get a YouTube copyright thing that keeps me from being okay. So I'm going to send this to you, and then y'all go watch it. All right, sounds like you guys are finishing up with the video. Cool.
Okay, I just want to say, the walking on the phone is completely against everything I was trained. Everything the Marine Corps has taught me is exactly against everything in that video.
I don't think I can talk on the phone without walking.
Yeah.
I can't talk on the phone while walking. I can't. I
I
can't. do
usually
it.
start
It's
pacing.
insane.
I
It's
pace
really
around
weird.
my room talking on the
Exactly.
phone. It's insane.
Yeah, I do the pacing and talking on the phone as well. Even when I'm just having a regular
have to do
conversation, I will
something
be
while
talking
talking
or
on the
moving
phone.
around.
You don't even have to be nervous. It's just like something I do.
I'm the person that lays down and like kicks my legs or pulls with something or draws when I talk on the phone.
I do that sometimes.
I actually started walking and reading. That helps me because I can't read, or so I get sleepy. So I walk and read.
The book is really good. I won't pass out.
Whether who's lying down or who's standing up or if you're walking around. For me, anyway.
So I think the main idea that we're supposed to get from that little video is the idea that we are designed to go throughout our entire day doing exercise because it is good for our brains. And so it does a lot of little fun tongue-in-cheek kind of examples of it. And clearly most of them are not good. Bouncing down the hallway, talking on the phone, drinking a cup of coffee is probably not a great idea.
Bounce the balls and go down the hall. That looked like fun.
Yeah. But the idea is that we are more engaged in learning when we are moving. And so that's kind of a big theme throughout this week, is that pairing up exercise with the brain is a good thing. And so we get a lot of our work, a lot of our material about the brain from that Brain Rules book. And so if you guys are interested in private, personal reflection type stuff, personal research, check out the Brain Rules. And it's good.
Sure, that's my phone, but someone's breaking in and out.
All right. How we doing? You guys with me?
Yes, sir.
All right. So we're going to go over to optimism and pessimism. I see somebody's drawing on the screen. So optimism. Optimism is the tendency to expect the best possible outcome or the most hopeful aspect of a situation. So if you are like me, optimism is like my primary go-to outlook on things. I'm an idealist. I try to be optimistic in every situation as my first reaction.
I don't really know.
And so the opposite of that is pessimism, right?
Yes.
So pessimism is the tendency to expect the worst possible outcome or find the negative aspect of a situation. So how many pessimists do we have in here?
I'm an opportunist, but I have a few friends that are pessimistic opportunists.
I look
There you go.
forward and run.
I'm an extreme optimist.
Cool.
I'm kind of pessimist because I like to
There's
and not get disappointed.
beautiful stuff in this
Prepare for
world.
the
I don't
worst
know
and
why
hope for
people
the
are so
best.
pessimistic about it.
So
I'm a pessimist.
Okay.
the main goal here is like not to say you should be one or the other, but to look at your perspective and be willing to examine, is this perspective, the best for this particular situation, and being able to go back and forth based on, the best thing. Sometimes a little bit of pessimism is a really good reality testing for the idealist. Like I'm an idealist and I have to have a little bit of pessimism in order to be able to be successful. My main struggle as a therapist and being an idealist was to allow myself to be a little bit more reality checking by nature. And so I had to become way more pessimistic in order to be a decent therapist. So,
You have to embrace the realism a little bit.
there you go. Yep. But in a hint of, or in a bit of irony, the tendency that you identify with will be the one you see when you look back at life. And that is a self-fulfilling prophecy. The way that you look at things is the way that you're going to see it when you look back. And so a lot of the work that I do is in self-fulfilling prophecy. And so when we are optimistic, we can go work with that optimism and create a good outcome. But whenever we have a pessimistic outlook, we also go do work because we expect bad things to happen. And so then we become not at all surprised whenever bad things do happen. And we, you know, give that meaning based on, see, I told you it was going to be this way. And so just know that the way that you look at things greatly determines the outcome. And so it's a good thing to know. What form of play is good for your brain?
Kind that doesn't involve work.
Say it again.
Anything that's stimulating?
Anything that's stimulating.
Anything that brings you joy.
Yeah.
Something that makes you exercise the mind.
There you go.
Something that releases dopamine in your brain.
Sure. Yeah.
Would you count playing video games as exercise then?
Dopamine.
Something that causes your brain to form new synapsi.
There you go. That's good.
I like anything that gets my adrenaline pumping.
Yeah. I'm not sure who it is. Somebody's got a real crackly mic.
Playing a musical instrument.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. So,
Anything that helps you find your flow.
yeah. I do a lot of chess in my therapy. And one of our instructors, Terrence Washington, he's like extremely professional chess player. And so he was doing an audition one time for a TV show, and I let him beat me for his audition. I let him win. So here's another brain rule. Our brains change over time. And you guys were kind of getting at this in your answers just a second ago. It comes down to the way that the brain is wired and all those neurons. And so we're going to talk about neuroplasticity. And so the brain rule here is about wiring. What you do in life and you learn in life can physically change the brain. So this is neuroplasticity. It's the changing of the structure, function, and organization. I hear somebody's microphone. I'm going to mute everybody for a minute so that somebody can get their microphone worked on. So neuroplasticity is the changing of the structure, function, and organization of the neurons or nerve cells in response to new experiences. As we learn, our brains make connections between neurons. And as we gain new experiences and information, our brains reroute their own circuitry for improved functioning. And those neural connections are the fabric of our brains. And so when you look at our brain, it's got all those folds in it. And that's part of the fabric, but all the way down on the cellular level is where those neurons are. And so our brains, if they get damaged, have the ability to reroute the circuitry to be able to regain lost functions. Or as you learn new things, they build those connections in a network for the first time. And so that's what neuroplasticity is. It's the brain's ability to wire and rewire itself. And so it looks kind of like this. I think this is an image from your reading material too. But for like a newborn, it's not very dense. And so for the first 2 years, it just fills in all over the place. But then once you reach 2, it kind of stops or slows down quite a bit. And what happens is your brain, as you reach adulthood, is actually trimming down those areas that are not reinforced or used a whole lot, so that what remains is the stuff that's the most necessary to do the things that you need to do. And so as you add more experiences, the connections that you have become more refined and more reinforced. And if they get damaged, they have the ability to repair themselves because it's been so reinforced for so long. It's a really cool thing. Whoever just said that is the one that's got the microphone that's a little crackly, so it's hard for me to tell exactly what you said. I'm sorry about that. Here's another brain rule: we don't pay attention to boring things. And so this is why it talks about.
Clearly.
Say it again.
Said clearly.
Yeah.
The reading material is so hard to keep reading. I've just skimmed over it for this week, and it's, oh my god.
I disagree. I've enjoyed all of our reading and everything that it talked about.
I have a question. Can I ask a quick question?
Sure, go ahead.
What, the book, do we download the book or where do we get the book from?
So the book is embedded in the platform. There's 2 activities that are the reading material.
It's downloadable?
You don't even need to download it. I'll show you real quick because we're going to be going into the homework here in a minute.
It's really like right on your courses list.
The reading material, where it says reading like 2.1,
Okay, yeah.
that is the reading material that we have to read.
I got you.
Of course.
Yep. There we go.
I got you. That's what a link. So if I wanted to print out, I could print out the link though, right?
Yes.
There's no link.
Got you.
Yep. So the more senses you can integrate into your learning, the better chance you have of holding on to that information. And one of the cool things that I have learned as a therapist, I did not start out as an art therapist by any means, but the more I've been working with kids, the more I've realized the way that we associate things together, we like organize all of our consciousness into these little areas. And think about like a filing cabinet. You open up that filing cabinet and you've got things organized by like, you know, how they have things in common, you know? So think about a folder and everything in this folder has a common name. And so that's really showing about how the more we integrate into our learning, the better chance you have of holding on to that information. So the more you can like identify how to get back to this information and like store it with other information, the more likely you are to hold on to it. And that's a really cool thing. Like with kids, they'll talk about having little like rooms in their mind and like everything lives in little rooms. It's very cool. So why is it important to understand how the brain works?
You understand how the brain works. You learn how the human works. You learn how the human works. You learn how to fix things.
Yep.
I just find it really interesting that the brain is reading about the brain. So like the brain named itself and everything. It's the strangest concept ever, but it's really cool.
I will call myself the brain.
Like looking in a mirror when there's a mirror behind you and in front of you.
Oh God, no.
You have to know how something works before you can fix it.
Exactly.
It's funny because I always go back to myself. Hey, Pinky, what we gonna do today?
Yeah.
Take over the world. My brain's always trying to figure out how to take over the world.
It's funny how we talk about our brain like we are not our brain.
You say you have to know how something works in order to fix it.
Yep. Okay. So that's kind of the main idea about the stuff for the brain. Any questions before we go on?
Yeah, how much of a percentage do you have to know of something that in order to fix it?
Oh my goodness, the more you know, the better, I would think. If you ask a mechanic that, it's going to be a whole lot.
Okay.
But I can tell you, as a therapist, It's kind of both, you know, like people come to me for answers, you know, like they expect that I know a whole lot of things about a whole lot of things, or that I have the answers and I'm going to be the one to tell them what to do. And I have found that like one of the best things is for me not to be like the one who gives out the answers. I give out the process, not necessarily the answers.
All right, I'll give you an example of. I don't know if I'm playing devil's advocate or I'm just trying to ask a simple question. Say PTSD, where we've had people that have been coming back from different things, different events, not just war, but it could be a car accident or something like that. People have PTSD from that.
Yep.
Some people recover from it, some people don't. Some people live a lifetime with it, because nobody fully understands what the end result is for a lot of stuff on that. But you do have some that are able to at least quell.
Oh my God, I've got
some
deja
of the
vu.
results. I was in the Marine Corps, so yeah. So
Just
trust
like
me, I have PTSD.
something like that. Someone asked a question about this, and I swear the response was that it's a matter of the perception of the person of whether or not they think that it's over, whether or not they are willing to continue to let it hinder them in their lifestyles or something like that.
Yep. The person that asked the question, did you have more?
No, Sex Wilson.
Okay. So I am a trauma therapist. It is what I do. And
Trauma therapist. Oh, okay. Hoorah.
I can get help. What?
Right. I'm going to mute everybody so that I can answer the question. So here's the deal. PTSD is a personal experience, and everybody has a story to tell. We are currently looking for a medical treatment for PTSD, and it is an elusive thing to try to get a pill, because you cannot medicate somebody's experience. To hope to do that is a dangerous thing. And so I help people go from where they are to better by a relationship. And so the whole thing about the military experience of PTSD is we train people in a group to survive, and we help them build up walls in their mind to be able to keep themselves safe and rely on their training and rely on staying behind these walls and letting the training take over. And we send them off to combat, and that works. They go through their combat and they stay alive. The kicker is they have a memory of the experience, and when they come home, they're alone. And we still have these walls up, and those walls don't serve any purpose anymore because they're no longer under a threat of being killed in the same way that they were under the previous experience. And so by encouraging people to no longer be alone and to bring those walls down, I have found that I can help people get better with just talk therapy. And so the best thing to do, I would encourage you, is to go find a therapist who can do talk therapy with you to help you bring your walls down and, you know, tell your story, because it is in the story being told that's where the healing happens. It's having to hold on to that story by yourself that makes it so that you can't process through the experience that you're holding on to. And that experience is part of you. And so it needs to be validated, not necessarily gotten rid of, but it needs to be told. And it's good to have people to go with you, because when you were trained, you had people going with you. When you were in that experience, you had people going with you. And then we bring these people home and they're isolated. And then we tell them that, you know, there's no hope or no way to fix it. There really is. It's in empathy and being with people. And so there are other ways that people do trauma therapy, and they are very mechanical, and they are not my thing. There's a lot of therapy that uses processing, and they don't even know what they're actually doing in a lot of the processing therapy that they try to do that's more mechanical. But I find that I can help people really quickly just by allowing them to go with people again.
Can I share my experience with PTSD?
Sure.
I know that a lot of you guys might say this is personal, but this is also my testimony, and I don't let it bother me. From the age of 5 to the age of 10, I've been molested by one of my sisters, and at the age of 7, I've been forced to, oral on my brother, and then I've been back to back raped from the age of 18 through 22. And got pregnant and lost my child. I deal with PTSD, but I don't let it bother me. I surround myself by people, even if I be dealing with a lot of stuff on my own. I pray about it, and that's a good therapy for me. It's praying and going to therapy. I go to therapy every month, once a month. But I don't talk to her about it. I'll just let it go. When she asks about it, I'll give her an answer. Like, say I don't let it bother me, because I really don't. I mean, I came a long way from being born on the streets to being that, going through that, and being bullied from middle school to high school. And the way the brain works is amazing, because like, if you have a strong willing with God and you are able to push that away, I don't think you need therapy if you have that strong willing.
So the thing about therapy is it's how you experience your journey. So for me, photography was therapy, and music has been therapy.
Yeah, therapy is my therapy.
Yeah,
like music.
I use all kinds of different therapy techniques, but the story is really one of the main ways that all therapy happens, because we all have a story to tell, and our significance is tied to our journey in life. And so, all right.
I don't mind sharing my story because it's my testimony.
Yeah.
I came a long way. I'm still strong about life itself. So.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
I just wanted to say that, because I have PTSD, but mine's from car accidents. I was in 4 and 2 years. And talking about the issues that I have and the nightmares and stuff that I have and everything is what's helped me the most. My doctors was like really impressed that I was so open about talking about everything. So I thought that was, because you said that was really helpful for a lot of people, is getting their story out and being heard and not being alone and stuff. And and I thought that I was the normal one, but the more people I meet, the more I'm finding that not everybody likes to talk about things.
Oh.
And it's more difficult for them to heal from bad trauma.
Yep, everybody has a pace, and like it's a journey for everybody. And there's not a wrong way to do it. There's just a process that we all have to find that works best for us. Everything that you see in this class has a connection to it.
And it's not overnight either. You don't get over it overnight either.
Yep.
It's a long process.
Those play personalities that we had last week and the qualities of play, like everything that we do has a personal, connection. And so we're all made up of different ways that we do things, and those stories take on the same thing. It's a little bit different for everybody, but we all relate because we all have so many common points that we can we can empathize with others because of the fact that we all share so many common intersecting elements. So anyway, let's do the homework. I will do therapy for 2 hours if we let me. So I want to give you guys the things you need to know about your discussion board so that you know you're doing them right. I'm going to bring the chat box up so I can see it again, in case you guys have anything you want to be asking me. Okay, so for your initial post, there are some things to look at. Hopefully you guys can see here on the screen. There is, each week, there are 3 essay questions. And so this week it's questions 2, 3, and 4. Cool? So what you want to do is when you answer question 2, if you look up here, each answer needs to be 5 or 6 sentences, at least. And so which quests did you pick, and describe your experience? And so if you pick quests 2 and 3, here you want to describe your experience also. And so one of the mistakes people make is they just say, I picked quest 2 and 3, and then they move on to the next question. But that would not be enough for that answer because we're asking you to describe your experience also. So be sure to describe your experience. Go ahead.
Right.
Right.
So question number 3 is the big one for every week. This is where you're going to identify, define, and apply 2 concepts from the reading material. And so kind of like we saw earlier, there are 2 activities that are reading. So you want to go in there and let's say you want to talk about, neuroplasticity. This is where you would do that. We're going to talk about positive psychology in a minute. You would go identify, let's say you want to talk about flow. So this is where you would do those 2 concepts. And so you need to write 5 sentences for question 3. And this is where we have a 20-point thing in your grading. Provide clear and specific examples and concepts in question number 3. Just that one is worth 20 points. So it's really important that you answer question number 3 with 2 concepts from the reading.
Okay.
Because that's where you'll miss the most amount of points. And then question number 4 is explain how completing these quests impacted your well-being. And so wellness and well-being is also one of our concepts for the week. And so you're just going to talk about how did these quests impact you and how you feel. And so that's a paragraph also. Okay.
Last week I was going to do a video instead of typing about it. But the fact that I had to underline the course concepts, I was a little confused about how I would go about that if I wanted to do a video presentation for it.
Same question.
Yeah, you would not need to worry about underlining it if you were doing a video. But what you will be doing is basically saying, so here are my 2 concepts.
Okay, and then just like go into great detail then?
You want to define those concepts and, talk about how it mattered.
Okay.
Yeah. So what ends up happening is if people are doing it in written form and they don't underline it, sometimes it's very difficult for us to find where in the world their concepts are. And so we'll spend a while only to find that maybe they didn't put any in. And that's why they didn't underline them. But if you're doing a video, you can take a second to say, here are my concepts that I want to talk about. And then that'll be great for us as we try to read it.
Awesome, thank you.
Sure. So let's go look at our quests for the week. We introduced these quests to you in the call to play, but you can also get to them by clicking in the orange here. I'm going to do that, and it's going to bring up the infographic. And you can do this too. So for week 2, quest 1 is get connected. And here you're going to organize an online meetup with your family or your friends. You can play a game, watch a movie, or catch up on the latest gossip. And so the important part is you're going to be turning in a presentation or an infomercial using screenshots or video clips from your online meetup, discussing the emotional benefits of online social connection. the backstory of this quest is, as we're going through the pandemic, we just want to make an opportunity for you guys to connect with people online.
Waters, beer, whatever, right in there. Ice cold.
Mute everybody again. So the idea here was we wanted to make sure you guys have an opportunity to connect with people, despite the fact that we're all social distancing and you guys are online. And so it's probably more difficult, you know, to interact with people when you're online. And so this is just an opportunity to allow that to happen. So you're looking at what are the benefits of meeting online with folks. And so you can do kind of whatever you want. What we're looking for is a presentation where you're sending in, you know, snippets of whatever it was you did. And so there's not necessarily a wrong way here to do this other than to like just write it. So be sure you're not sending in just writing. Try to send in some screenshots and then you can add some writing to it. But the main idea here is you're sending in some snippets from your online meetup. Does that make sense? Cool. Would clips from a live stream be acceptable? Absolutely. Can it be with anyone? Yes. Can it be a meetup in person? For this one, it's not supposed to be because we're trying to do this as an online thing.
How do you watch a movie online with someone?
You know, I don't really know.
It's an app.
There's a couple. There's services like there's services like Cast, or you can screen share with somebody, or do the Netflix party type thing. There's a lot of
You
options.
could actually also do it on Zoom.
You could do it on Zoom.
Yeah, you can do it on Zoom.
And there's Zoom movie
I
parties.
forgot the other app.
You
There's
could
another app.
you could always do the 3, 2, 1 go method, but I mean, hey.
Yeah, and Discord.
Yeah, Discord. Yep. And what's another app? I can't think of that app. I know that the logo got a bunny on it.
Oh no, Rabbit does not exist anymore. As of 2018, their service got shut down due to bad funding.
No, not Rabbit. It's
Oh, I
another
was
one.
gonna say Playboy.
It's another one that you could like watch movies with somebody. I gotta get that for my nephew. My nephew knows
Anybody
I
want to
can't think of
drop
that
me a
app's
link in the
name.
comments?
Oh my god, I would just own it.
Is it
It's
Cast with a
somebody
K?
else. I forgot.
You could do a Netflix party.
There you
Just search it on Google. You can do a party through Netflix.
Yeah. Are you sure? Can you?
All right, let's see. Hold on one sec.
Xbox has a way too.
All right, so Quest 2 is the weekly plan. Hopefully you guys are familiar with this one. This one was available last week. You can do this all month if you choose to. If you like the weekly plan and you want to keep doing it, that's great. But when you look in the directions, the weekly plan lives right here. It's called the Work, Play, Fit, Push Weekly Plan .docx. So when you click on this, it's going to open up our template, and you want to fill this in. So you want 3 items every day for what you do for work. This does not have to be like a job, although it can be, but you want like 3 items that are just effort things that you do on a daily basis. Think like washing the dishes and taking out the trash, whatever. And then 1 item every day for play, fit, and push. I'm going to go over this quickly because they did this in week 1 too, but fit and wellness goals would be exercise or anything for wellness, reading a book, meditating. For me, this would be photography, anything that you do for wellness. And then push is something that you do to challenge yourself. Can it be the same as last week? My weekly schedule doesn't change much. I would recommend, if you find that it is not going to change at all, you pick a different quest, because I don't want you to turn in the same file twice and get in trouble. So if you find that it's the same file, pick a different quest. Ideally, you would, knowing that your schedule doesn't really change, think of new things to identify that you maybe not appreciating as much, and put those in as a way to show that you're updating it. We used to have everybody do this every week. And so what people found was how much they were not aware of that they do. And they really appreciated how much the plan grew as the month went along. But I don't want you to get in trouble for turning in the same file twice. So make sure you pick a different quest if you think it's just going to be the same file. Because you don't have to do this one. That's one of the things that I notice is people are like, I had to do it this way because I didn't have any other choice. Well, but you could have picked a different quest. So that's the one thing about this course is you have all kinds of new choices to make. And so you should not feel like you've been, I want to say like cornered into doing something because there are so many options that we give you. All right, quest number 3 is learn a new skill. Choose an activity you have never done before that requires repetition for improvement. Things like juggling, doing a cartwheel, drawing a cartoon, playing a musical instrument, dribbling a basketball, stuff like that. And then practice this activity over the course of several sessions. What you're going to turn in is a video where you're describing how your perception of the activity changed over time. So you want to like do a video of yourself getting better at it and how your perception of the activity changed. So I know that if I was juggling, it would not happen. I would not happen in the first session. And I might video myself. But if I do it for a week, eventually I'll be able to juggle one ball, right? And so my perception will change. My attitude will change. And so that's what we're looking for is that video of you describing your perception changing. Think about that optimism and pessimism thing we were talking about a little while ago and how it's your perception that we're looking at. So this one's a video. And then quest number 4 is press play. Select one of the Psychology of Play podcasts and then listen to that and reflect on your takeaways. And what you're going to turn in is an infographic or a presentation highlighting the points that resonated with you. So you want to turn in visuals and a text. And so if you have not found the podcasts, they are in the bonus material. Down here, 2.6. Here are the podcasts. There we go. To access the Psychology of Play podcasts, click here. And so when I do that, it brings them up. And so number 6 was mine. So go pick one of these podcasts, listen to those, listen to one of them, and then reflect on what stuck out to you, what mattered. And you're going to turn in an infographic or a presentation. So it's going to include visuals and some writing. And so those are our quests for this week. Cool?
The only question I have for the new skill, if we already know how to do something, but there's something more to that skill, like say cooking, for instance. Yeah, I know how to cook, but I'm not very good at baking. So is like that going to be considered a new skill, or do you want something completely separate that's completely brand new?
I would say if you turn in something that you are already familiar with how to do it, but you want to do something new in addition to it, that's fine. I don't think anybody's going to give you a hard time about anything like that. Where you're trying to add in a new skill, should be fine. You can totally let your instructor know that that's what you're doing, and they'll tell you, awesome. Or if they have any concerns, they'll tell you before you turn it in.
Cool.
Yeah, because I was thinking about something similar like that too. So like I can play the bass a little bit, and I was like, oh, I can just learn a new song. But because I know all the basic skills to learn the new song, then it wouldn't be a new skill.
Right.
But crochet, if I were to use that, I could learn a new stitch that I've never done before. And that is a repetitive something that I would have to do over and over again. And I could do that in a small snippet, if that makes sense.
Yep. So the goal here is to change your perspective, or to discuss how did your perspective change. So if you are already, experienced in something, and you just, like, I'm a drummer, if I was trying to learn a new song, I'm not going to have any perspective change when I learn a new song. And so it's kind of it's not the best use of the experience to say my perspective didn't change when I really didn't do anything different other than learn a new song. But if I was trying to learn a new skill, then my perspective changes. And so if you can tie it into I learned something and my perspective changed, you'll be okay. Just try to make sure that you don't set yourself up for that. I didn't learn anything, but you also didn't really challenge yourself. That makes sense?
So drawing something new doesn't count.
If you're already an artist, drawing something new is not going to change your perspective, because you're not learning a new skill. You're just learning a different, thing that you are like.
What if using a different medium that you've never used before as an artist?
I was about to say the same thing.
Yep. So if you guys want to take a look at that quest, and so this is what happens. You guys are bringing up a very common thing. It's not a problem. It's just know that you're not learning a new skill. You're learning the same skill with a new technique. And so in this particular quest, we're trying to get you to do something totally outside of your norm.
Well, the reason why I ask, a perfect example would be water painting, like Japanese style and stuff. If you're an artist, water painting's hard as hell. I'm not gonna lie, for me anyway. I mean, that's something that you have to learn how to be very precise and good at, to where the colors don't bleed over and things like that. From what I've observed, I don't know. I'm a photographer. I don't draw. So
it's definitely different than oil painting.
Sure. So think about this. If any of you guys turned in any of these things to me, I would not have a problem with it on first glance. As long as you are turning in a documentation of you practicing those things and how your perception of the activity changed. It's totally fine. Just don't set yourself up for not doing what the assignment requires. I mean, it's probably absolutely fine. Just make sure you don't put yourself in a situation to where you're doing what you would prefer to do instead of what the quest asks you to do.
I also have a question.
Go ahead.
What about like for drawing or sketching? What if we know how to do that relatively well, but we don't know how to do it from perspective angles. Would that be considered a new skill, learning perspective drawing? So like from a low viewpoint, high viewpoint, with stuff like that?
Yeah, I guess it would. You guys are all coming up with things that are very different to do that you would prefer to do that are not the quest, though. So
I got a quick question.
It's totally, okay, hold on one second. It's totally fine to do all of these things, but I want you guys to see that what you're asking is to go do something that you're familiar with. And I want to tell you what happens is we are very familiar with wanting to do things that are safe. We all want to do things that are safe regardless. And so picking things that you already like is a very natural, normal thing to do. The whole idea here is to go do something not safe. And so
break out of the comfort zone.
Yes, we don't. So here's the other thing. we do not grade you on how good you are at it. We do not grade you on, did you do a good job at what it was? We're trying to get you to do something outside of your comfort zone and to turn in the video of you doing something totally outside of what you would normally do. And so go do that, because it's actually going to be easier than doing something difficult that you're already good at, or something a little bit outside of what you usually do. It's going to be technically okay to do it. It's probably absolutely fine. I would never grade you down for doing something in your area that's a little bit different. I'm not going to grade you that way because I don't grade my quests that way. But I want to make sure you don't go do something more difficult in order to do something safe. There's no danger here. Go ahead with the question.
Okay, so I'm a dancer, and I want to learn is okay, let me start this question over. I'm a dancer, and I just wanted to know, would me learning a different style be a good skill? Like, I want to learn how to bone break. Would that be a good, yeah, would that be like a good skill to learn? Would that be good for this quest?
What? Same thing. It's already in your field, and so you can totally do it because you're learning something new in your field. But it's not going to be like juggling, doing a cartwheel, drawing a cartoon, playing a musical instrument,
Assuming bone breaking is a type of dance, I wish you the best.
Yeah, it is. It's a little. It's not what I do. I'm an all styles hip hop dancer. It's totally like different. So like, I just wanted to know, is it like a good skill to put down? Because I don't know the foundation yet. If I should say.
I'm gonna say, it's probably very fine to do it, but just know that in all of these questions that you guys are asking, it's the exact same answer. You're doing something that you're familiar with. You're just doing it in a different way, and that's not the same idea.
Nah, I'm not familiar with it. I just feel like it's another way to grow my dancing.
Sure, yeah, and it's totally fine. All of you guys want to contact your instructors first.
For maybe 6 years. Cinematography, not so much.
Yeah, you guys want to all contact your instructors and let them know that you're thinking about doing something that is kind of like what you're already familiar with, just so that you know. Okay. Okay. I'm going to mute everybody for a second. Did we get all of the questions answered about this part? If you have a question still, go ahead and ask. But basically, the answer for the last like 6 questions was it's something different than what the directions are asking. So contact your instructor to make sure that it's okay for you to go do that before you do it. Because I don't want you to do something more difficult than what we're asking and then have it not be okay with your particular instructor. I think it's okay. And if you turned it into me, I would be okay with it, but I can't speak for the other 14 instructors here. All right. Is there a preferred way to deliver the infographic or presentation? So any file that you are turning in, we would prefer like a PDF or a PowerPoint or a Pages document. You can do an Adobe Spark presentation. All of these things are able to be drag and dropped into the platform without us having to go download proprietary software. So think JPEGs, PDFs, PowerPoint, whatever slideshow, or Adobe Spark. Those are the things that are the most common. So turn in stuff like that. If you had a trouble with the embed tool, Jeremy, what was the file type?
It was just a MP4 file. It was a video.
Export it to YouTube and send in a link.
I tried to do it. Well, I tried to embed the URL from YouTube, and it wouldn't let me. So I just ended up dropping the link directly onto it.
Yep.
Use the link button.
Yep, that's the best way to do it.
Okay, I just wasn't sure. It said in the instructions to try to use the embed tool, and I had no luck with it.
Yeah, we're not going to give you a hard time on anything like that. It looks different on your side sometimes than on mine. I can do embed when I do announcements, but it's not the same as when I try to embed onto like a discussion board.
Right.
I run into a similar problem trying to embed my weekly videos, so I share them as links in my announcements. So yeah, anytime you have to embed something, if you can send in a link, we're able to access that, and that's totally fine.
Cool.
Okay, let's take what was the file size? Oh, that may have been for you. So don't know how to use apps in 365 except for Word. You can go onto LinkedIn Learning and learn everything you want to know about the Office programs. They have all kinds of videos on there if you would like to learn. Also, anything that you would do on like PowerPoint in Office, you can do either on Pages or you can go do Adobe Spark. Adobe Spark is really simple to use. That's a really great tool. Yeah. Okay, let's do a quick 5-minute break. I'm going to leave the microphone option for you. If you guys want to talk during that 5 minutes, you totally can. So it's 2:10. I'm going to come back at 2:15 and we will do our positive psychology stuff. Cool?
Okay.
All right.
Sounds
Enjoy your
good.
break.
For me.
Yes, I have difficult time doing PowerPoint and the other ones too. Only one I do real good is Word.
I suggest if you struggle with like PowerPoint and stuff like that, try using a film or video editor instead. It can give you a little bit more control over your project.
Okay.
If anybody wants, like, what is it called? Video Shop.
I do have Discord. I do have that.
I've been using Power Direct for all of my projects, and I use that on my phone.
Hey, is Discord good to use for videos too?
For what?
I guess for.
Okay, now Discord is a communication app. It's not like an editing app. It's for communicating with people.
What would you guys say the best video app? Because I've been doing
Honestly,
like a mixture.
you don't even need anything extremely high quality. Things like iMovie or things like that.
iMovie is good.
Yeah, iMovie is really good.
I'm bad. I don't know how to use the Adobe app either. So yes, it's all bad for me.
Not the Adobe
one is good.
Yeah, you just gotta get used to it. Because I used to use Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator. If you get on it and you get used to it, it's comfortable.
Honestly, during the week is a good time to play around with different softwares to see what's compatible for you, because you do have a couple days. Just make sure everyone that you complete your call to play today, because it's due today. Even though it says it's due a different day, it's really weird. As well as the instruction posts are usually due on Thursday.
Our teacher actually closes it up at 11:59. She doesn't let no leg room. I'm just being honest. You got to teach her. She does not let no leg room, no for no lateness. So.
Filmora Wondershare is a good editing program. It's free too, so.
I use OpenShot.
I pay for Adobe. I think that's the best, but you have to pay for it.
Yeah, right. OpenShot is
That's
free.
why I like using things
Resource.
like now while it is expensive, I haven't had to use really anything besides Final Cut Pro. And that is strictly because you pay for it once. It's not a subscription. You don't know your financial situation like 8 months down the road.
I agree with that so much.
I'd rather own my software.
And Power Direct is a free app on Google Play, simple editing software.
It's funny you should mention that the financial thing, because there was a hiccup with my payment during the beginning of when the quarantine started. I was doing what I was supposed to be doing because I could do editing remotely for other people and stuff like that. And one of the people, they had a hiccup with the payment, and for that, I had one card going specifically to Adobe, and they don't even give you room to budge or anything. They will cut your shit off.
Exactly. That really screwed me because I was doing different video editing projects for a small company that I worked for. And one day, I think I had money on a different card or whatever. They just cut it. I was in the middle of work and they were like, oh, hey, guess what? You didn't pay us. I'm like, what?
But see, that's the funny thing, because I have all my stuff. I have an automatic pay because I have a card for like Adobe. I have a card specifically for PlayStation. So I have money that goes specifically to each thing. So when that happened, I didn't even know until I get ready to go to do the final edit. And I'm like, wait, what's going on here? And then you get the pop-up from Adobe. I was like, wow, bro.
That's why I'm like, it's just worth it to own your software because you know you have it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You do what you need to do. See, I think you get what you pay for when it comes to software.
They pushed me to go to the cloud. I love hard copy. I love things that are tangible. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
The digital world's taking over.
Unfortunately, and I find it funny how, in order to simplify things for people, they said, "Oh yeah, put it on the cloud." The cloud is just another word for service. Like, people didn't like the word server. They got to be politically soft or correct or whatever the word is.
Oh, it's the cloud. It's nice and soft. We're not selling your data at all. We promise. You can trust us.
Corporate America at its greatest, huh?
No kidding.
Live in a society.
We live in a society.
This class, like soccer, this class is challenging for me. Just like the last one was. This is challenging for me because I don't like talk about my feelings and like that. So,
trust me, I get it. I've never been an open person. So where they're like, think about your personality.
You don't think about it.
Things too much.
I try to observe everything through a kind of lens. One thing I've learned about humans in general is if you're not used to something, it'll be hard. But if you're used to something, it'll be easier for you than somebody else. So it's all about perspective. So right now you don't have the perspective that you need.
And what do you learn
gain
if it's
perspective?
What perspective do you need?
What do you learn if it's easy? If it's easy, there's nothing to learn.
Like, I
I
know.
think you need to learn to.
Perspective, I still want to
I
do
think
it.
for these courses, I think you really need to learn how to be self-reflective, and that is really difficult for someone who doesn't think about their emotions a lot or doesn't have time to. You have to really sit down and look inside yourself to figure out some of this stuff. Otherwise, you're going to be completely out in the cold, looking for other people to kind of fill in the gaps. It's really strange.
Okay, so what about if you already know how to do that? You just don't feel like doing it for a grade.
Say it again.
As a child, I said, what if you already do that on the daily, but you just don't feel like doing it for a grade?
We all paid, but you paid money to be here.
I mean, that's kind of the point of it. I mean, you gotta just get it done. It's like, why are you here if you don't? I mean, it's here to.
You don't want to do the work.
And it's not necessarily here
You
for
guys
a
might
grade.
curse me
You're
for
here
this,
to
but-
do that, to learn about yourself. That's the point of college. You're here to learn things. You're not here to know things already. Otherwise, where are you?
I'm
It would be kind of boring.
Well, you're supposed to always.
I am totally loving this discussion that you guys are having. Let's move on to the last little bit. We've got to do our positive psychology stuff, but hope you guys enjoyed the little break there. All right. So this is kind of like the main push for this week here. With positive psychology, it encompasses quite a bit of things, lots of stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the difference between regular psychology and positive psychology. And when I say regular psychology, I'm using air quotes because it's a medical model. So we're going to look at the difference between the conventional medical model psychology and positive psychology. And so we're going to look at what are the benefits of positive psychology. And so that's going to bring up happiness, gratitude, and perma, and flow, and other stuff too. So there's kind of like a dividing line between psychology history. You know, we brought up PTSD earlier and trauma, and how that's, you know, impacting the military a lot. It can impact anybody, but one group of people is, their role is to go out into threats. And so when people were returning from World War I and World War II, they were coming back with what was called shell shock. And so as time went on, that shell shock turned into what we now know as trauma, or PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And so what happened was, during that time, people had a hard time, no, let me say it this way. Psychology was the study of like positive stuff before World War I or World War II. They wanted to help people increase their skills. They wanted to nurture what was best. They wanted to do great things for everybody. But when people were coming back from war, they realized, oh, we could make money by getting, you know, research funded, and the government will pay for it. And so what happened was there was this burden on the medical community to incorporate psychology into it, and learning how to get these disease type things transferred over into psychology. And so what happened was they made big strides in labeling disorders. And so there were 14 different disorders that were identified during that transition from making psychology about strength to making psychology about symptoms. And so they organized all of these symptoms into groupings, and then they had disorder labels for each one of those groupings. And so trauma disorders are an entire grouping. Mood disorders are an entire grouping. Psychotic disorders are an entire grouping. And so they came up with new treatments and new ways to do things. And that's good. They came up with some good things. But then on the bad side, psychology became a field about victimology. And so this made people who were in the field of psychology practitioners on damaged habits, damaged drives, damaged childhoods, damaged brains. And the real problem is there's no prevention for mental illness. And so how else do I want to go through this part? I'm going to show you guys a thing. Get my camera up here again. There it is. This is the DSM. This is the DSM-5. In this book are all of the diagnosis categories and every aspect of every diagnosis in psychology. This is the pocket version. It's not super thick. My mom has my big version because she's writing a book and she wants to develop her characters based on what's in those diagnosis symptoms. And so I had to learn, you know, how to diagnose in order to be a counselor. And then the next part is I had to justify all of the medicine that my kid clients were using. Look at the size of that book. These are all of the medicines for psychology, all of the psychotropics and anything that anybody could be on for psychiatric diagnosis. And I had to be able to justify why my students were on what they were on, or why my clients, who are all teenagers, were on these medicines. And so I show you that because it's a very organized, but it's also, I think it restricts people. I think it labels people unfairly a lot of times because it reduces people down to their symptoms, and that's not fair. That there is a dehumanizing element to it, because one of the things that I have noticed is that the more I look at my clients as humans instead of as their diagnosis, the more I am better at being a therapist. And so teaching this class where we focus on positive psychology has been a great help for me, because I have a hard time limiting people. I am very good at diagnosing, and I hate that about myself. You know, I know how to triage all of the symptoms into what they are. And in a questionnaire or in an interview with somebody, I can pretty much tell you what the diagnosis is for what it is they're presenting with. The problem is we can put anybody into any diagnosis if we try hard enough. I'm going to say that again. We can put anybody into a diagnosis if we try hard enough to make one fit. I'll say it a different way. I have seen a lot of adolescent clients diagnosed very inaccurately by therapists because they felt like they had the power to do it. And that sucks. And so a lot of what I did was I undiagnosed a lot of kids who needed to be undiagnosed, or I really reduced the intensity of what their diagnosis was, because the people who were diagnosing them were doing a horrible job diagnosing what was important to them, not what the client was actually presenting. And that is no bueno. So anyway, positive psychology is a very different thing. Positive psychology is a strength-based view. It's a strength-based lens. And positive psychology can be for everybody. Everybody should not have a mental health disorder diagnosis. But that's what regular psychology tries to do. Positive psychology does not work off of a diagnosis. It helps you identify what are your strengths, and then we build those and we encourage those strengths to develop. So the field of psychology is not just the study of pathology, weakness, and damage. It's also the study of strength and virtue. Treatment is not just fixing what is broken, it's nurturing what is best. It's not just a branch of medicine concerned with illness or health, it's much larger. It's about work, education, insight, love, growth, and play. And so positive psychology looks at all of those things. It's the difference between being proactive or reactive. You cannot find happiness by assigning power to things outside of one's control. I just got a message to me specifically, Sex, if you want to talk to me afterwards, that's totally fine. So we're going to look at two different people. We're going to look at Martin Seligman, and we're going to look at Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. How that word is Csikszentmihalyi is beyond me, but that's what it's supposed to be. So Martin Seligman is our main personality guy that we use for positive psychology. He was the American Psychological Association president a while back, and he did a big TED talk that I believe is in your reading material. And I don't remember where Csikszentmihalyi is from. He's not German. It's like Polish or something. Anyway, so Dr. Seligman has a whole lot of material on positive psychology in general. And so when you go look up Dr. Seligman, you will find he has a whole lot of website material. He wrote several books, and we get our PERMA model from Dr. Seligman. And I'm going to go through the PERMA model in a minute. And then Dr. Csikszentmihalyi, he is our authority on flow. And so we'll go through flow nowish. And so guess who? The answer is Dr. Csikszentmihalyi. He said this: the best moments in our lives are not the passive, receptive, relaxing times. The best moments usually occur if a person's body or mind is stretched to its limits in a voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult or worthwhile. There you go, Philip. He's Hungarian. Cool. Thank you. So flow is a state in which people are so involved in an activity that nothing else seems to matter. The experience is so enjoyable that people will continue to do it even at great cost for the sheer sake of doing it. So this brings us into our discussion about flow. And it's really a state of genuine satisfaction. And so think about, have you ever felt any of these senses of timelessness or complete absorption in a task, especially if it's something creative, where you feel great strength or great alertness or effortless control? Congratulations, you found your flow. And so I'm gonna bring us back from a tangent we were on earlier on talking about trauma and PTSD. You guys have talked about that quite a bit. For those of you who are in the military, I'm gonna say a lot of these things and you're gonna be like, yeah, I experienced those all the time, but it was generally when I was, you know, relying on my training, you know? And so one of the things that I have appreciated about flow is that flow activities take you into a place where there are no boundaries. If you think about a river takes you naturally through a path of least resistance. It takes you where it wants to go. And play is like that. When you're enjoying something, it takes you wherever it goes, and you're just kind of along for the ride. There's no boundaries involved. There's no threat involved. And so when that threat and those boundaries are removed, you have the ability to lose time. And so one of the things that I have learned is that flow is it's a hypnotic state. And so whenever you talk about hypnosis, hypnosis is about the walls that exist in our minds. And so we build up these walls to be safe. And sometimes we bring walls down when we already feel safe. And so flow and trauma are the same hypnotic mechanism, but in opposite directions. And so when you feel flow, you are engaged in a subconscious experience or a subconscious state because you're good at whatever it is that is being required to do it. Think about playing a video game. When you play a video game, you have clear goals every step of the way. There's immediate feedback to your actions. There's a balance between skills and the challenges. Your actions and awareness are merged. The distractions are excluded. There's no sense of worry or failure. Self-consciousness disappears. Sense of time becomes distorted, and the activity becomes its own reward. All of these things are what goes into flow. Jeremy has a question. How does this fit in with the BRAC cycles? It kind of does, but not specifically. So BRAC is BRAC is tied into the circadian rhythm cycle. Flow is subconscious, just like BRAC is subconscious, but the BRAC cycle is a different function. It's keeping you rejuvenated 24/7. Whereas flow is it's a hypnotic mechanism, but it's more about awareness and reinforcement of like what you enjoy doing. And so it is subconscious, kind of like the BRAC cycle is, but it's not on the same not on the same page. So there's three main things required for flow: goals, balance, and feedback. You've got to have a goal, there has to be balance, and there has to be immediate feedback. So all of those people who are artist types, whether it's music or any kind of, painting, drawing, graphic type stuff, when you are learning to do something, you don't really reach that flow state. But when you are practiced at it, then you can reach flow, right? When you are really good at something, you can totally get lost in that experience. Think about playing a video game. Anybody here ever play a game and like it's been hours, but it seems like it's only been minutes, or you like miss a meal? Say it again.
All the time.
All the time, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's what flow is. And so it's a subconscious thing to like lose time. Like one does not just lose time and know it. But like having amnesia about what has happened to time is a big deal. Like that's a thing. And so for those of you who were talking about PTSD earlier, it's a similar thing to have something come flooding back into you when you didn't ask for it. It's the same mechanism, but backwards. And so it has to do with the boundaries involved. You have to create boundaries in order to learn a skill. You've got to, like when I was playing the drums, I couldn't just sit down and play something. I had to practice and practice and practice before I got the sticking pattern right. I had to learn the sticking pattern. I had to get my fingers and my wrists strong enough in the right ways to be able to do certain kinds of sticking movements. And so once I had those skills down, then I could reach a flow state, but I had to put in the practice first before that flow state came. And so there had to be immediate feedback through the skill being learned, and then I could reach flow. So there had to be a balance between the challenges and the skills that I had. And once I had all that stuff taken care of, then I could go into flow because I had these conditions met. So I just want to like give you a good resolution here about the trauma stuff we were talking about. PTSD and flow both have to do with having boundaries in our minds around events. And so that event can be playing the drums or playing a video game or certain combat training. And so when those skills are learned, we go off into those things and we rely on the front-loaded practice to be able to turn our minds off to, how do I do this? And so when you come back from a video game session, there is no like internal conflict about what you did. There is one sometimes when there's trauma involved. And so there's got to be some remedial work on processing, now what? And so that's the burden of overcoming trauma. That doesn't exist in flow. And so when you realize you missed dinner, that's an easy fix. You can just go eat. And so in my experience with therapy for trauma, it's, you know, it is going to be okay. Let's find out how, or let's find out why. And so where do we need to apply a little bit of grace? Where do we need to apply a little bit of responsibility? You can do that in both ways for missing a meal because you're playing video games too long. It takes a whole lot more grace to do that on the trauma side, but it's the exact same mechanism, just in a different direction. They're both forms of hypnosis that we go into when that threat arises or when that fun arises. I know that's not normal psychology 101 level stuff. And it's hard to do a really good deep dive into it here, but it is a thing, and I would like to encourage you. Flow is awesome, and your career is going to be helping other people achieve flow states, and that's a cool thing. For those who are dealing with trauma, get help, don't go alone, have people go with you, and allow yourself to experience whatever comes through in your awareness as you allow yourself to process it. Anyway, there you go. Could somebody go erase the markings on the screen? And then we'll talk about wellness real quick. What is this wellness thing? What does wellness mean? Thank you. What do you think wellness is about?
Mental, spiritual, physical, and overall well-being and health.
Being in a state where you feel happy, motivated, and or inspired.
Yeah.
Being happy.
Yep. It's good. It's like being okay, right? And anything that you do to nourish that in your life, you know? There are all sorts of things that you can do for wellness. There are all sorts of things you can do to being okay. What we're going to do is we're going to look at the PERMA model, because the PERMA model is connected to wellness, and it's like also connected to happiness. And so in order to be well, there are 5 things that you can do every day. And so it's an acronym, and it's right here in front of you. And so positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. So these are the 5 things that you can do to have ongoing happiness or ongoing positive psychology outcomes, joy, and being well. And so we're going to break this down into each step. The first step is positive emotions. They are an essential part of our well-being. Happy people look back on the past with gladness. They look into the future with hope, and they enjoy and cherish the present. In the beginning of this lecture, we talked about optimism and pessimism and how you look at the world greatly determines how you look backwards. And so here we're saying, happy people look back on the past with gladness. If you can get that positive emotion every day, you are more likely to be able to be in a good space to look at what's going on in an optimistic way. And then when you look backwards, it's not as messed up by a bad view of the current situation. And so our past is very much determined by our current situation. And so this is related to that. So every day, the goal here is to experience something positive in your day. So what can you do to build positivity into your day every day is what we're looking at here. So the next thing is engagement. When we focus on doing the things we truly enjoy and care about, we can begin to engage completely with the present moment and enter the state of being known as flow. So we're still looking at perspective here. When you're engaged in what's currently going on, you are more likely to experience flow. If you are avoiding what's currently going on, it's hard to reach that flow state. And so an essential part of wellness is being here fully. And so every day you want to be engaged in the present moment. This is why your third grade teacher wanted you to stop looking out the window. Relationships. Everyone needs someone. We enhance our well-being and share it with others by building strong relationships with the people around us, like family and friends and coworkers and neighbors. So because we're wired for relationships, every day it is good to have somebody to go with you in your life. It is part of our wellness journey to have other people go with us. Next is meaning. We are at our best when we dedicate time to something greater than ourselves. This might be religious faith, community work, family, politics, a charity, or a professional or creative goal. You know, I talked about storytelling earlier, and people's stories matter. It's because we have a great amount of meaning in our lives attached to our stories. And so every day it's important to be able to focus on, where do you get meaning out of life? And are you doing those things? Are you involved in things that bring you meaning? If you are involved in things that bring you meaning every day, that's part of wellness. And the last thing is accomplishment. Everyone needs to win sometimes. To achieve well-being and happiness, we must be able to look back on our lives with a sense of accomplishment. Being able to say, I did it, and I did it well. Next week, we're going to be getting into some of the motivation stuff. And so this is part of that. We want to feel like the things that we're doing have some accomplishment, outcome. And so we want to make time every day to have accomplishment. So that's why in our weekly plan, we have those 3 goals for the work part. And that's to build in accomplishment to your day every day. And so when you do accomplishment every day, then you're moving your life forward. And that's part of wellness. Here's another quick video to watch, and this will help us finish up. I'm going to put this in the chat box for you guys again. This will be our last thing for the day before I open up any questions and let you guys, give me anything you have as far as the assignments go. I'm going to put this in the chat box. Go watch this. Let me know when you're done, and I'll start talking again. All right, guys, thank you for letting me know you're done. So we talked about positive psych, talked about flow, wellness, and PERMA. Do you guys have any questions about the material? Do you have any questions about the homework, the discussion board?
Oh yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
When we the first quest when we're talking with our friends on and stuff, do we have to like edit the audio to if they're in like cursing on that stuff? Do we have to like do all that work editing?
The short answer is no. You don't have to do any editing, but I would recommend not turning in a video that is with profanity. Like if it slips out once, that's totally fine. But if it is like we don't necessarily want you to turn in an infomercial or presentation if it's got profanity as something that was clearly not. You want to be mindful of that, right?
All right.
So think about it as a professional presentation for what you turn in. And so you don't have to turn in your whole time hanging out. You just want to pull screenshots, you know?
Okay.
So don't turn in something that has not been cared for. How's that? When it comes to professionalism. And so if you find that, there is something that you don't like in there, maybe you only turn in screenshots, and that's totally fine. Cool.
Yeah.
What else? Any other questions? So I'm going to hang out for a couple of minutes to make sure that if you have any questions, you are able to answer them.
I have a quick question.
Okay, I'm going to turn off the recording, and I will let you ask your question.